What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for the very first NHL Deal or No Deal of the season. This series has been a staple on my channel for years now, pretty much ever since I got started. So if you're somebody who's been around for a while, then you probably already know how this works. But for any new viewers who have never seen one of these before, I'll quickly tell you how it works. It's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, I ask you guys for mock trades on my community tab, and I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who submitted a mock trade for this episode. There was well over 200 comments on the post, and what I do is I pick out some of your guys' mock trades, break them down in a video, and ultimately decide if I think it is a good deal or no deal. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The first mock trade we have comes from Eric, who says to Colorado, Logan Couture, 25% cap retention, and Matthew Benning; to San Jose, Erik Johnson, Sampo Ranta, and a Colorado 2023 first. Goes on to give some explanation here. The trade gives San Jose a first for the draft and a good prospect, while Colorado gets the second line center they've been looking for since Kadri left. Also, Couture is a playoff beast, and also appreciate the kind words. I think this is a really good mock trade here. You definitely put a lot of thought into this. Obviously, Logan Couture's contract is a little bit rich. He makes $8 million a season through 2026-27, but the money works here pretty much perfectly with the cap retention and Erik Johnson's $6 million going back to San Jose here. First off, from San Jose's point of view, I think this would be a deal in a heartbeat for them, because given where they are currently as an organization, I think they should be looking for as many trades like this as possible, where you get a prospect and a first round pick for one of your veteran players. Now, yes, they are bringing on Erik Johnson's $6 million cap hit here, but he's going to be a UFA at the end of the season anyway, so it's not a contract that will be on their books for very long. Now, the one thing I don't think the Sharks will be too fond of when it comes to this deal is obviously the 25% cap retention on a contract that isn't up until after 2026-27, but I feel like with a lot of the veterans they have on big deals, that's the way you have to do it if you want to get maximum value for those guys, or if you want to move them at all. But ultimately, I do feel like this is a really good mock trade for the Sharks, and now let's talk about it a little bit from the point of view of the Colorado Avalanche. Like you said, this definitely does fill a big need for them, and that is a second line center. A lot of people, including myself, kind of figured that Alex Newhook would be the guy to jump up and fill that 2C role, but up until this point in the season, he hasn't really broken out yet, so they could definitely use a guy like Logan Couture. Now, the one thing that kind of makes me question this deal if I were the Avalanche is, would they be able to fill that number 2 center role in a deal that isn't quite as risky as this one? Because yes, Logan Couture is still a very good player, but he is 33 years old, has a pretty high cap hit even at 25% retained, and like I said, is signed through 2026-27. So do you really want to give up a first, a prospect, for a guy who, yeah, he's going to help you this season, likely going to help you next season, but the final 2 years of this deal, like, this could be a guy who's viewed as a negative asset depending on how his game ages? I just think there's a little bit too much risk involved for how much Colorado's giving up in this deal. So for that reason, I'm gonna say no deal, but I definitely like the outline of this mock trade, and I think you're on the right track with Colorado going out and acquiring a number 2 center. That's definitely something that I expect to happen between now and the deadline. The next mock trade we have comes from Tyrese, who says to the Rangers, Patrick Kane; to Chicago, Capo Caco, and a 2023 first round pick, and also really appreciate the support. So a couple of things here right away. I do really like this mock trade, but for the money to work, Patrick Kane would have to be 50% retained, and then the Rangers would likely still have to send a contract or two back to Chicago to make this work. But for the sake of the video, let's just assume that the Rangers and Chicago would work all those cap issues out, and in that the main pieces of the deal would be what we see here. So with that in mind, if this deal isn't just a rental for the New York Rangers, like if they feel that they could extend Patrick Kane, or if the deal comes with an extension, kind of like when Mark Stone was traded to Vegas, then I'm actually going to go ahead and say deal to this one. I know a lot of Rangers fans would probably say this is too much, but let's be honest, this is a team that's trying to win a Stanley Cup right now. The Rangers are contenders, and it's not like trading Capo Caco would leave the Rangers short of young talent. I mean, just look at their blue line alone, one of the youngest blue lines in the league, and then up front you still have the likes of Alexei Lafreniere, Vitaly Kravtsov, depending on what his future is with the team, and also a guy like Brendan Othmann, who isn't even a full-time member of the team yet. They would still be fine when it comes to young talent, and let's be real, like, this is year 4 for Capo Caco now, and although he's still only 21 years old, he's incredibly young, still has a lot of room to grow. I don't think he's really shown any signs that he's eventually going to burst into like a game-breaking player. Like, even right now, he is still a very solid middle 6 winger, but at his best, I don't know if this is a guy who's ever ever going to be the kind of game breaker that Patrick Kane is, even still at this point in his career. I don't feel as though Kaapo Kakko is ever really going to live up to the label of being, that second overall pick. So those are the main reasons why, if I were the Rangers, I would be okay with trading Kaapo Kakko for Patrick Kane in this deal. Again, if it comes with an extension or the Rangers believe they can get him extended in the offseason. If it's just for a rental, then this is definitely way too much. Moving on now, this next one comes from Isaiah. Not a real serious one here. To any team, Hoffman to Montreal, future considerations. I kind of just wanted to put this in here to talk about, like, isn't it kind of crazy how quick Mike Hoffman sort of fell off? Like, those 2 years he had with the Panthers after going there from Ottawa, he was one of the most elite snipers in the league, and now he's really just a non-factor for the Canadians. He had a couple games stretched there this season where he put in a few, but other than that, like, yeah, this is a guy that really just doesn't fit into their plans. And at $4.5 million through 2024, this is a guy that you'd probably actually have to attach a draft pick to get a team to take on. And given where Montreal is at right now, that just doesn't make any sense to do. It's not like they need that cap space. This is a guy they're probably going to hold on to, and then who knows, maybe next year in the final year of his deal, he can find that scoring touch and fetch Montreal something at next year's deadline. Moving on now to the next mock trade. This one comes from Justin Shields, who says Detroit trades Filip Zadina to the Carolina Hurricanes for Noah Gunler and a third-round pick in 2023 via the Philadelphia Flyers. Not spending too much time on this one. I'm going to go ahead right away and say no deal. I just feel like this makes zero sense for the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm not sure why they would even want Filip Zadina, let alone give up some decently valuable assets for him. Noah Gunler's a pretty solid prospect. I don't think Zadina's even worth that much, and that's coming from a Wings fan. I love the guy. I want to see him do well, but at this point, I feel like it's just getting less and less likely that he's even gonna develop into like an above average NHLer at this point. Next up, this mock trade comes from Jeff, who says the Blues receive Jacob Chikrin, Coyotes receive Zach Bolduc, a first, 2 seconds, and a third. Zach Bolduc has been great in juniors and has high upside. Coyotes also get some higher picks to help with their rebuild. The Blues need help on the back end. They're letting in too many goals. Maybe Chikrin is the piece they need to get over the hump, and also really appreciate the kind words. The St. Louis Blues are definitely a team that I feel like should be in on Jacob Chikrin, especially when you look at their left side with Torrey Krug injured. It's very weak compared to their right, and as far as what we should expect a Jacob Chikrin trade to look like whenever that trade happens, because I do ultimately feel like it's going to happen before the deadline at some point, I think this is about what we can expect. A top prospect, which Zachary Bolduc is. He was a first rounder in 2021. He's been lighting up the queue the past couple seasons, and then also a ton of draft picks. Obviously, that is what the Arizona Coyotes want, and in this trade, they'll be getting a first, 2 seconds, and a third, which I think is honestly pretty fair value for a guy like Jacob Chikrin. I know some people may think that's too much, but let's not forget Chikrin is a guy who, was kind of in the Norris Trophy conversation a couple years ago. He is a beast. He's still young as well. It's not like this is just going to be a rental or a short-term fix. He's a guy that would be a staple on a team's blue line for a long time. He's cost-controlled as well. He's on a very team-friendly deal. I actually like this mock trade a lot for both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one. The next mock trade we have, I get featured in the video, you get a like. I'm going to go ahead and say deal to that one. Got to do what you got to do to get a like, and I'll use this comment as a reminder to all of you. Please go down, drop a like on the video if you want to see more NHL deal or no deals before the trade deadline. Moving along now to the next mock trade. This one comes from the man who says Flames get Marcus Foligno, Wild get a second rounder, and Connor McKay. Flames get a Daryl Sutter type player that can put up points. He had 42 last year, and the Wild get a pick and a defenseman that needs a shot to prove himself that he can play in the NHL. I do definitely feel like the Flames could use another top 9 forward, and I think you're right about Marcus Foligno being the kind of player that Daryl Sutter would definitely like. I think this mock trade makes sense. I think it's pretty solid, so I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one. If you're the Wild, you free up a little bit of cap space. Obviously, with their whole situation after buying out Parise and Sutter, they're going to be in a cap crunch for a long time, and you get a second rounder for a guy who's really underachieved to start this season. Foligno has just 1 goal in 13 games, so I think this is a deal that would make both fan bases relatively happy. Next up, this mock trade comes from Jonah, who says to Detroit a 2023 first, a 23 second, a 24 third, and Vitaly Kravtsov. To the New York Rangers, Tyler Bertuzzi 50% retained and Olli Maatta 50% retained. From the Red Wings side of things, I think you take this deal in a heartbeat if you don't feel like Tyler Bertuzzi is a guy that's going to get an extension done or stick around. For the Rangers, though, I just feel like maybe there's some better options out there. Like, I think they should definitely go out and target a guy like Patrick Kane over making a deal like this. Love me some Tyler Bertuzzi. I think he'd fit well in New York, but that's a guy, he's had back problems in the past. He's really struggled to stay healthy over the past 3 seasons as well. I just feel like if you're the Rangers and you're willing to give up that much, there's probably going to be some better options out there. And also, when it comes to Olli Maatta, I just don't really feel like the Rangers need a defenseman. A guy like Olli Maatta, their defense is kind of set, in my opinion, at this point. So for those reasons, I'm going to say no deal, even though as a Red Wings fan, I'd probably take this. sense. The next mock trade we have comes from Luke, who says Alexander Holtz, Shakir Mukhamadullin, a 23 first rounder to San Jose for Timo Meier. So this would be a pretty big blockbuster deal. Timo Meier is definitely one player on San Jose that I'm most interested to see what happens with, just because I feel like he has the most value of any of their, tradable assets right now, just because he's still young and he's not on a untradeable contract, even though his qualifying offer is going to be a ton at the end of this season. But I actually really like the idea of Timo Meier going to the New Jersey Devils, because that's a team that's winning right now, and I'm sure they want to continue to get better and keep winning now. And yeah, you're giving up some big future assets here in Alexander Holtz and Mukhamadullin and a first round pick, but it's not like Timo Meier is just a guy that's going to help you for 1 or 2 years or be like a rental. That's a guy who's still relatively young. He was a first rounder in 2015. He'd be the oldest of like the young core guys there in terms of like Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, and Jack Hughes, but he still fits the timeline with those guys. Just imagine adding Timo Meier to this Devils team that is already looking so good. And if you're the Devils, you're not taking anything off your active roster here. I mean, Alexander Holtz has only played 4 games this season. He was just sent down to the AHL yesterday. I actually really like this mock trade for both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one. Yeah, you're giving up a lot if you're New Jersey, and I love Alexander Holtz, but there's no guarantee even at his best, at his peak in his career, he's going to be the kind of player that Timo Meier is, right? I just wish GMs would take more risks like this. And now for the final mock trade of today's video, this one comes from Stanley Franks, who says Columbus receives Bo Horvat, Vancouver receives a 2023 first, top 2 protected, a second round pick, Jack Roslovic, and Adam Boqvist. I really think Bo Horvat to Columbus makes a ton of sense. However, I'm going to say no deal to this one right away, just because if you're Columbus, you're the worst team in the NHL right now. With all the injuries they have, they're probably not getting any better. I'd be surprised if they finish any higher than like 3rd worst in the league. Even though this pick is top 2 protected, I would much rather just hold on to that pick and hope you land a top 3 pick in this year's draft, which is going to be absolutely stacked. Like, even if you don't get Connor Bedard and you get 2nd or 3rd, you can still get a guy like Michkov or Fantilli. So that's the reasons why I'm going to say no deal to this one. I just don't think it would be wise for Columbus to give up their first, even if it is protected. So that is going to wrap up today's episode of NHL Deal or No Deal. Like I said at the beginning, if you guys enjoy this, leave it a like. That's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and that'll tell me that you guys want to see more Deal or No Deals leading up to the trade deadline. Obviously, I always want to know what you guys think as well, so leave your thoughts on all the mock trades we discussed down below in the comment section. And last but not least, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.